she did that exact same thing that she did in one of the first one in this
Yeah.
one. But anyway, welcome. Huge movie fanatic Nate and State of Flux Matt, coming at you to do something I know everyone on my channel really wants to know about. Not really, because we're more horror enthusiasts and stuff, but what the hell. You and I reviewed the first one, I think, way back when.
Yeah, we did.
So I thought it only made sense to review the second movie, which is Avatar 2,
The Way of Water.
Wet People. Blue or Teal Wet People, I think was the working title. So I saw it once in December, and it was the last, actually, incidentally, it was the last movie-going experience that I've done recently, and our experience was kind of crappy. Very briefly, there might be wind here. We're in this outdoor shelter thing. It's kind of windy in here. If there's wind on the mic, apologies. But very shortly, we did this thing where it was, well, everything is pretty much reserved seating now. So
yeah.
we went to the theater and picked the seats on the screen, went in, and there was a whole bunch of people in the row, and our seats were right in the middle. And I'm not going to ask all these people to move and all the complications that could make. So we sat somewhere else, which was kind of a bummer because technically we might be in someone else's seats that come in later. So that was like, that's a whole separate video, honestly. Right now I'm very disenfranchised with the movie, the theatrical movie-going experience, kind of as a result of that and other things. But that could be a video topic, I guess. Very briefly, have any thoughts on reserved seating?
I like it, so I work at a movie theater, I manage a movie theater. I like it in the sense of it's very easy to track if people are stealing movies, essentially, hopping from theater to theater, if they're like sneaking in and whatnot.
Oh, maybe that's the behind-the-scenes reason for it, more than the customer convenience.
I think, honestly, I think what it was in part due to the Batman massacre that had happened. It was to identify.
That way we have well, unless you buy tickets with cash.
With cash, but
most people probably don't do that.
Yeah, so then that kind of whittles your.
We've got your ID.
Pretty much, and if somebody commits an act of vandalism or some kind of any kind of threat, we can track. Well, if the person was sitting in the right seat, which is. That's where the if comes in. If the person was sitting in the right seat, we can use like ways of recalling where that person was, and then having them like banned from coming to the theater again, or be able to press criminal charges if something like were to, say, spray an entire auditorium with like a fire extinguisher or something like that.
Okay. Well, interesting. We've got possibly a separate vid on it, no promises, but we've got the actual theater employee perspective, which is kind of interesting. But apologies. Avatar 2, Teal People in the water. So it's over 10 years later after the success of Avatar, and we get Avatar 2, Teal People Wet. So
before you get into the review for the second one, just refresh people in maybe 2 sentences what you thought of the first movie, and I'll do the same.
Okay, good idea actually. So first movie, I'm pretty sure I gave it 3 stars. We all know that it's a Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves, yada 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 ripoff. But to give it its credit, obviously at the time the visual effects were a selling point. If you're enabled to do it in the theater and or at home, the 3D element was very stunning and still is at home. Not to mention, obviously, James Cameron, so sound and things like that. So I think that people that, like I was, who were certainly aware of the Pocahontas Dances with Wolves ripoff thing, were, until maybe Titanic, I was a big James Cameron fan. So it was cool to see James Cameron back instead of doing this movie about the boat thing. He's doing something again, pushing technology, this and that. I think I gave it 3 stars. And I guess I'll probably touch on it a little bit in this review because I do feel definitely compared to the second one that it's definitely the more competent and engaging film. And even though it is like 2 hours and 40 minutes if you do theatrical and whatever the extended one is, I mean it really goes by well, and it's really paced and done well. So first film, I think I gave 3 stars out of 4. That's my take on the first one.
My criticism with it was pretty much similar, which is this is a movie trope, the movie, i.e. it is just Pocahontas, Ferngully, Dances with Wolves, any number of things. It's just that movie. However, in true James Cameron fashion, he may take these tropes that are overused, but it's the best damn version of that trope that I have seen on film. So I gave the movie, I think, 3.5, 4 stars thereabouts. For the first movie, I really liked it. I thought it was tightly edited, incredible action, interesting characters, interesting perspective on a brand new world with the whole luminescent thing.
Right, creating
dazzling.
of a new world, which one of my criticisms is, if you're creating all this new world from quote-unquote scratch, why does so much of it resemble Earth?
My thing, I'm even fine with that. My only problem with it is it's so creative and so technically well made across the board that he was like, I'm just going to use narrative shorthand or creative shorthand to give you things that are easily digestible story-wise, just so you can consume the world around me. But once you've consumed that world and maybe have watched the movie twice, the movie is very basic.
Right, and then you're just watching it for the technical achievements.
And I mean, and maybe he's coming from an old school film perspective of film as a theatrical medium. You only get like 1 or 2 bites at that apple anyway, so he doesn't make it for the home video market. He made the movie for the theatrical distribution, and from that perspective, he aced it. He made a really compelling, good-looking movie that you can pick apart like crazy with repeat viewings. So that's my base. But as I say, he did it. Even though it is just Pocahontas, he did Pocahontas better than any other filmmaker's done Pocahontas. So I give it to him.
That was our thoughts on the original film. Now, over 10 years later, comes out the second film, and first off the bat, my opinion is this is like 30 minutes, easily too long. Oh my God, it's 3 hours long or whatever. And
3:16, right?
3:16.
I think it's
so
3:16.
It's easily 30, 40 minutes too long in my opinion. Maybe we'll get into that if the world doesn't end before the video's over or whatever. So what I thought was goofy about the first one is that, okay, yay, we defeat the humans and, shoo them away. And they thought that was just going to be like, I don't get why they think that they could never come back. So cut to, if you want to speak on that, go ahead.
I think the idea was, it wasn't that they ever could come back, it was just that
this battle
kind
had
of
been won.
the human hubris of we're gonna beat them because they're attacking us with sticks and arrows and we're attacking them with military might. And it's sort of the repeat idea of Aliens, which is like they're primitive. We have all this stuff, and the only difference is in Aliens, the monsters in that are just that. They're reduced to being monsters, and in this, he kind of takes a thoughtful examination of like the monsters are real individuals.
The good guys this time, that as well. So obviously, whatever it is, they have time to raise a family, get some, sprout some young ones or whatever. Jake now, of course, being his earthly born body being just whatever. What did it go? Did it get wrapped up and went into the tree, or I can't remember what happened? Did they show what they did with the corpse? Maybe the tree
it ends with them all like going.
Yeah, but what happened
like
with the corpse?
I imagine he just disintegrates.
Okay.
Like you didn't see. Like,
oh, they didn't do that. Because I thought they didn't they do something with
they
the
put
corpse
him
of
by
Sigourney
the
Weaver?
tree. They did put both of them by the tree, and
tree.
his consciousness gets permanently embedded in the Avatar body, so we don't know what happened. Presumably, it just decomposes at the base of that tree.
His Earth, the original body is decomposed. He's now living the rest of his life in Avatar. They spread out some kids, and cut to whatever it is. I can't remember in the movie, but we'll say 10 years or
I think
later.
it's 13. I think they did it in real time, so it's 13 or 14
what it is
years.
in relation to the release of the movies. Okay, so 13 years later or so, humans come back. I don't know why it took them that long, but for the purposes of the movie, maybe they figured, okay, well, the force with them combined with the Mother Nature, AWA or whatever, maybe is too great. Maybe it's not worth the unobtainium or something. We'll sell other crap or make iPhones or whatever. Maybe they figured it wasn't worth it. But cut to like so many years later now, I think there's some verbal dialogue about the Earth is now becoming uninhabitable. So their plan is to actually go and make Pandora their new planet or one of them or whatever. And building. They have these robots that build everything and can build really quick, and
Yeah.
so there's this scene that just the ships are coming back and obliterating the forest as they land, very disturbing. That's one of my complaints or complaints with this movie, is that there's so much of that which was minimalistic. They kept it to a minimalistic level, and it was more towards the last half of the original, where it was like the that kind of stuff. Pretend I'm a Blue Nateri. Like, there's just way too much of that in this movie for me, and you got to see it like right at the beginning. In addition to the whole rest of the movie, right when the big ships are landing and they're burning up the frickin' forest and doing so. Thoughts on that, or anything you want to talk about?
Well, like, I think this movie, just based on what I'm listening to, I certainly like this movie better than you did.
I figured you would.
That said, I don't think it's a movie without criticisms, and I think two criticisms that I have are the most biting, one of which you've already touched on, which is, you have the same goddamn bad guy again.
Right.
And he's a great actor, and I like that character in the first one. He was a perfect villain in the first one.
Let me quickly say, hold that thought. However, having the same bad guy in this movie and the way it was utilized, in my opinion, is the most interesting thing about this movie. Go ahead.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, okay.
That was my biggest problem. I was like, you couldn't have come up with somebody else? You could have said, and they even went with that dude had a son angle. Like, you couldn't have done the son is going to come back to avenge the father or something like that. Yeah, it's as basic as the rest of the movie, so whatever.
What did you think? Because I'm sure you knew years and years and years ago on IMDb or whatever that Stephen Lang was a part of the cast. I'm sure you knew that years ago.
I didn't.
You weren't paying attention?
I was surprised when he was coming back, and I'd heard that he was in this one. And I think in the trailers you don't really see him in the trailers at all.
I can't remember.
I'm trying to remember. I only watched the trailer once, so I tried to go in as blind as I could.
That's good to do, but maybe one of the later trailers showed him. I can't remember, but yeah.
But
you didn't know about his being in it.
I knew he was in it because I'd seen that he reprised his role, and in the interview thing that I had read, he was talking about filming his human scene for the video playback. And I was so he's going to tie into the movies in some way. So I just assumed it was a flashback thing.
It was kind of like Giovanni Ribisi's. I think one scene is the same thing.
Yeah.
Even though he's 13 years older, it was back, before or around the time of the first film.
Yes, so that's exactly what I thought. And so when he shows up and he's the main villain of this film, I was like, all right, I guess I'll go with it. But he was so detesting of the Avatar technology that I was just like, I don't buy that guy would in any way ever subject himself to do that. I think he would have come up with a different terroristic way to attack.
Yeah, that's true, but I kind of think it's if he had the choice between death or... See, that goes into the thing that I think is the most interesting part about this is exactly what you said, is this guy hates the Na'vi, so to be one is okay, you can either be dead or you can be a Na'vi, and it's just that interesting dynamic.
I was just going to bounce off that. He is a more well-rounded character by the end of this movie because of those angles and the ties to his son, and the fact that this is only partially the consciousness of the character who very much did die in the first one. This is kind of a reboot of that same core concept with just different ideas. He, by the end of the movie, is a much more interesting character than he was in the first movie. Mm-hmm. So, they utilized it well, and that was where I wanted to see where the movie was going to go with him, because if they were just going to do the same story over again, and to some extent they did.
That's exactly it.
They made him interesting and compelling enough where I can foresee they won't have to do that for the third one, assuming the third one comes out in any kind of timely way. And the only reason I think they did that for this one, and wasted so much screen time with it being essentially the same movie, is because it had been over nearly 15 years between the movies. So you had to introduce a whole generation.
In the second one, kind of familiarize people with the first?
Yeah, he essentially did a legacy sequel to his one movie,
Okay.
just because so much time had elapsed. And I don't think that was probably in the original game plan, but he kind of adjusted to retrofit this legacy sequel element to the movie. Right down to the fact that this follows the children of the main characters in the previous movie.
I try not to make this review too long because we want to talk about other things, but in short, Jake and company, once the Earth people come, they start sabotaging Earth people's stuff. The Earth people, now with the Quaritch as a Na'vi avatar, and all of his little marine henchmen are avatars as well, because they all died as well.
Yes.
So all those people are back. They're after Jake because they're sabotaging the stuff going on. It makes Jake and family have to move from their forest where their home tree or whatever, home tree's blown up or tipped over or whatever,
Yeah.
but move from the forest to go somewhere else so that we don't endanger the rest of whatever.
Yeah.
But so then they go and meet the water people, and I thought it was cool that they were teal versus blue, just like the forest people or whatever. We'll see what color the ash people are or whatever. Maybe they'll be gray.
I'm assuming gray or brown.
Yeah. Well, maybe the shit people. We'll save brown for the shit people. The fourth film.
Yeah.
the mud clan. But anyway, they go off, and what's so ironic, and makes me roll my eyes, is now they bring all their problems to the water people, which I thought was really rude.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, they were kind of just living in peace, completely isolated from all the events.
So we're gonna move so we don't endanger where we came from. So now we can endanger where we're going.
Yeah, that is kind of messed up. I didn't really necessarily think about that. My biggest issue with this film isn't the villain so much. I thought that was just kind of weak writing. My biggest issue with this is Jake Sully is clearly the main character of Avatar, with Neytiri as a very incredibly strong counter lead
I
or
know where
whatever.
you're going.
Who is the main character of this movie?
The teenage son.
Maybe, but
or the whale.
He also disappears for 45-minute chunks at a time, which is not insubstantial. It's the Sigourney Weaver character is at one point you're following her so much that you're like, oh, well, clearly she's going to be the main character, but then she's not, and it's the older son, or maybe the younger son, or maybe the spider kid, and then they just keep going back to Jake Sully, and
by the way, yes, Neytiri and Jake are in this still.
Yeah, and then Jake takes over from time to time, but never really feels like the main character, but gets the final monologue suggesting the film is from his perspective.
I'm the hero of the first one, so I get the last word.
Yeah, and it's just this movie would have been better if they had framed it around an individual character and then let the rest of the story sprinkle out around, much like the first movie did. The first movie was tightly written because of that. This just seemed weird, and the weirdest part of that is I guess the oldest son is the main character, or one of the sons is the main character. I can't remember if it's the oldest one does. The youngest son is sort of the main character, but
one of them.
Sigourney Weaver is clearly the most interesting character, and the movie the
daughter.
Yeah, the daughter, the one that the movie wants you to pay the most attention to. So why the hell isn't she the main character? That was just kind of strange. I don't think you needed to have the older brother at all, and if you wanted to kill one of the characters, you could have killed.
And the second time I watched it, I was aware, I could remember that one of the kids died, but the second time I watched it, I'm like, oh my God, there is so little with the older brother before he dies that you don't even give a shit.
Yeah.
And it's darn, he's dead.
You have that great opening scene where you see him as a child and Jake training him, and then they cut back to that during the closing monologue. It is, as a father, that is a powerful moment that made me cry.
Right, the strongest part of that son being dead is, like you say, the shots of him teaching him when he was younger, not so much the present day loss.
Yeah, and so, those are my issues with the movie. I think at the end of the day, I really like the look of the whole new environment that we got. I like the whole
AKA underwater.
I liked all the aquatic stuff. I like the stuff with the whales, and you have like this Star Trek 4 anti-whaling message kind of going along with the film for a little bit. I thought the action was incredibly tight. He utilized his techniques from The Abyss and from Titanic.
There's a Titanic and Abyss in this movie. You've got a sinking, a sinking boat, and then moon pools and all this kind of stuff. So, and some of the, I want to say that some of the underwater glowy stuff is very reminiscent of
The Abyss,
the aliens.
Yeah, so much so that when I was watching the movie, I was like, is he gonna like tie The Abyss in? Like, it's a Fox property, so like they could.
Oh shit! Yeah, what the hell were they called in the Abyss?
I can't remember.
Hell, I love that line. You think everything's a conspiracy? Everything is. I like that in The Abyss.
Yes.
A little bit of truth in there.
I liked the Spider Kid. I thought I
thought that was an interesting element.
It was
I did too. The opposite of Quaritch. So it's Quaritch's son. Meanwhile, Quaritch is he left behind his human body. Now he's Na'vi. This Spider Kid is his son, basically human, but growing up as Na'vi. Those things I thought were the most interesting elements of the movie to me, and not the overall scope of what that movie wanted you to care about. And let me talk about the Quaritch thing. In Quaritch becoming, Na'vi and trying to get through this, he does a lot of the same things that Jake had to do in the original movie. Learn how to dominate the flying thing, ride the flying thing. And what I love about it is Quaritch was going to use, weaponry, tech, or whatever to do it. And then his son is like, well, that's not how, Na'vi kids do it when they're 12. They do it bare hands. And then he's like, I gotta put this tech down or the gun or whatever and do it barehanded. And that was the stuff that I thought was the most interesting. We've got more character development, probably with Quaritch and maybe his son, and an interesting dynamic going on than I think, in my opinion, obviously it's just my opinion, with some of the main characters. And I thought that was like unexpected nuances that impressed me.
Yeah, the thing that I guess I don't know that it's what I liked about the movie, but what I felt this movie executed well is they shot this movie at the same time as the third movie and a portion of the fourth movie. This movie felt like it was reestablishing the world for audiences and setting up the dominoes for what is probably going to be a pretty baller third film.
As in tear jerks, waterworks, baller? What do you mean baller?
Like really cool.
Oh, cool.
Like just
baller
a really,
means cool?
Yeah.
To you.
That's like an old ass phrase too. But I'd say that's like a 90s kind of thing.
Oh, okay. He's using terminology that was before his time. Actually, you existed in the 90s.
I did.
You were just going like...
Yeah.
Well, maybe...
That was the 80s that I was more like that.
Anyway.
But yeah, so I think they set the dominoes up for a really good third movie that they could just launch into without having to do the setup, because this movie did the work for it.
Okay, gotcha.
And I don't think there will be much in the way of having to do reshoots for the third movie because this was super successful. I think he probably baked in some time to work in reshoots if this hadn't been quite as successful of a movie as it was, where all audiences kind of did go out to see it.
So that begs the question, because this is the third one was supposed to come out next year, and now it's pushed back to a year later, isn't
Disney pushed things off.
So it makes you wonder if the performance of the second one made them want to change things. I don't know.
The second one, opening weekend performed terribly under predictions. However, it had substantially long legs. Yeah.
More so than probably any movie of quite a long time.
Only Top Gun Maverick was the only stateside film to beat it, but this easily beat Top Gun Maverick worldwide.
Okay.
So enough people came to see it. I don't think that Disney's worried about it anymore. And working at the theater, most people coming out had positive reactions to the movie, where I don't think Disney has a quote-unquote Last Jedi situation where they're like, ooh, the discourse on this movie is a little out there, maybe we need to rethink things. I think they're just like, well, Cameron's got this.
It does make you wonder.
I think they pushed it back because they foresaw the writer and actor strikes looming, that they were like, we should make sure we have a major release during a time period where, since there's no writers writing now, last time something like this happened, in 2007, the movie, it takes a couple of years for movies to come out, right? The summer slate of 2009 is where the writer's strike films kind of came out, and you're looking at Terminator Salvation.
That's the first one I thought of.
X-Men Origins Wolverine. You're looking at Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. So, like, I feel like they were probably saying, looking at that and like, we've got a surefire hit, we can have an exceptional hit, just if this movie is as good as the second one, it'll probably be better than most of what's coming out in the market. That's my personal feel of what it was, and also to give time to just do alternating years for Star Wars movie, Avatar, Star Wars,
Wait,
Avatar.
there's doing more Star Wars movies?
Yeah.
Maybe that's another video?
Yeah, we can talk about Star Wars again, why not? Yeah, so I think that's probably why they switched up release strategy, is seeing the looming writer's strike, which they knew full well they were not going to bend on ahead of time.
Okay, well, let me give probably some of my final thoughts so we can try to wrap this up. There's other stuff to shoot today. So I said what I like about it. The things that I just dislike is I just think there's too much what you could call peril in this, too much of material going, all this and that. And the thing with the, I mentioned early on that, the first one they were after unobtainium, so that turned out to live up to its name. It was too difficult to unobtain or obtain, so they gave up on that. Now they're back to not only like from what I can understand in two viewings, how do you say that word?
Colonization.
Colonize. Thank you.
Yeah.
Colonize. What's the name of the planet? Pandora. Thank you. For humans to whatever. And on the side note, this is what I want to get into and kind of wrapping my part of the review up. And also harvesting, which is really going for big bucks now on planet Earth, this special glowy golden fluid from these Pandora whales, which I guess stop aging of people who can have enough bank to credits or whatever they want to call them in the future to afford it. This is what we're doing now. In those scenes, I thought were just such like, there's a way to organically do, and I'd argue that maybe he did it better in Titanic and the first Avatar, organically do stuff that's going to lead to, build stuff that's going to lead to audience emotional attachment and this kind of stuff. I thought that the stuff with the whale and just all of that kind of stuff to just make people pissed off at the humans and make people cry and all this and that was just completely like forced. It was almost like they wanted. I don't like all that stuff with like killing the mom and all this sad scene with all that. And that seemed to be like 15 or 20 minutes long, in my opinion. Cut that. Who knows? Maybe a deleted scene on the Blu-ray, whatever. That was my biggest problem with the movie. Is it's never-ending attempt to just grab your emotions and make you cry at the tragedies of the what's befalling the Pandorians, and just at the same time hate the humans. So my biggest problem with the movie.
I get that. I list positively, I'd give the movie 3.5 out of 4 stars. I do think this is James Cameron's worst movie, not counting Piranha 2.
Oh my God, hold that thought. I thought it was really interesting that there's actually some Piranha 2 parallels with the flying fish.
Oh, yeah.
Did you think about that?
I did notice that when I was watching it. It's like, it's interesting that as of now, his first movie and his last movie are both about flying fish, to some extent. But I digress. He doesn't want us to remember that movie. Sans Piranha 2, I think this is his worst movie, but even still, I'd give it 3.5 out of 4 stars. It's very good. There's so much to like in it. However, I haven't talked about the stuff I liked as much because the stuff that I don't like is kind of glaring, and I don't know if I'd give another one of these movies a pass like this again.
If the same stuff happens?
If the same kind of creative shorthands keep happening. He's
You're on notice, Cameron.
Pretty much. He set up the dominoes well, and assuming he can tip them and utilize the Stephen Lang character in an interesting way the third time around that's different than we've seen before, and it's like his trajectory is going in a more interesting and creative way.
Is it the inevitable leaning towards good guy, bad guy? We don't know.
I think he's always going to remain a bad guy, but I think he's going to start to understand them, and
that'd be interesting.
That's where he's going to start reflecting on maybe
his values.
Yeah, the values of what is trying to be accomplished. Yeah.
And go ahead.
I think that the film has no focused main character. That's a big issue. I had no problem with being like a tearjerker. My biggest problem, though, is I think pretty much inarguably the best character in the first movie that most people would cite would be Natari. And where the hell was she in this movie? She's got like 20 minutes of screen time.
Well, I think every 40 minutes she shows up and goes,
yeah,
and then she's gone.
Maybe like she was filming Avengers Endgame or something, because this was filmed years ago. Maybe she was doing like the Infinity War Endgame thing. Like it certainly wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So like I don't know why she's so painfully underused in this film, and I hope that gets course corrected in the second one, or the third one, because she's the one I care about the most. Now I guess the Sigourney Weaver character, I'm really compelled and interested to know more. Sigourney Weaver's my favorite actress, so she was believable as a 14-year-old girl too, by the way. Just throwing that out there. I like
You've always wanted to see her as a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, pretty much. But she was great. My positives are that it's great looking. It does have interesting characters, even though I don't know who the main character was. I really like the stuff with Sigourney Weaver. They ended in a good place with the villain and the relationship with the son, who might turn villainous, or
that's the question. Good guy go, bad guy go good, or the opposite with the son?
Is the son, dad gonna try to redeem the son if the son goes dark? Is where I think ultimately this story is gonna go. I think that Stephen Lang will truly remain the villain the whole way, but I think he's gonna try to save his son from becoming him after he learns the morality play at hand.
Okay,
that's my prediction. But I'm excited for Avatar 3. I have to wait until like 2025 or 2026. Who knows at this point anymore.
Way of Ashes.
Is that what it's called?
No, I'm just...
He has the title. I don't remember what it is.
When me and Cameron talked last, he didn't tell me.
Yeah, but there you have it. I give it 3.5. You sound like...
What do you think, my star?
I'm going to go with 2.5.
Close. 2 stars out of 4 stars for Way of Water. Way too much action. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s now. Like, I don't like too much action is actually a bad thing for me.
Fair enough.
We'll just leave it at that. If you're done,
I'm done.
I'm done. Avatar 2, Kill People That Are Wet. Thanks a lot for watching.